Welcome into the Husker247 Podcast. I'm Mike Schaefer, joined by Brian Christopherson here as we inch closer to the start of the Nebraska football season. Nebraska Northwestern, just how many days away, BC? What are we at? 15?
15
14?
days.
15 days.
15. Tommy Frazier days until Husker football.
Incredible. I'd ask you your 15 favorite Tommy Frazier moments, but we're on a bit of a clock here today.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like that could take up the whole show, and we don't want that. We want people to learn about the 2022 Nebraska and not just continue to live in 1995. So we're doing everyone a favor, I suppose, today. So speaking of 2022, here's the podcast format. This is everything we're going to do. We're going to give you the full reveal right at the beginning of the show. We're going to talk about every position. BC is going to label a player that he expects to start, and maybe we talk about someone to keep an eye on, and we're going to go through this pretty fast. So if you're one of those weird people that listens to a podcast at like 3 times speed so you can get more podcasts into your life, this one could be moving quick. So just hang on and try to keep up. All right, let's get this thing started. We're starting right on the offense, going the traditional route. Quarterback, what do you got for me, BC?
Well, that's been cleared up. It's you got your Casey Thompson at the top, and then I think Chubba Purdy is too. I like that he's taking splitting reps with the one so that they're both prepared, and well oiled for a game. An interesting thing is Mark Whipple mentioned each guy is going to have sort of his own menu. Like, what do you like? What are you good at? What feels right for you within the offense? I think. Dating back to January, everybody sort of suspected, right, that Casey was the favorite. And I think his experience has played an edge. And, probably the most promising thing that came out of the last couple of weeks was Scott Frost, Whipple, Thompson all saying, the procedure on his thumb after spring ball really helped him. He helps him grip it, probably added some confidence to his game. He's throwing it better. And it sounds like those guys have had a pretty good camp. The last practice withstanding where they met the media and they'd happened to stink it up. And so we heard about that. But that would be the QBs, I would think.
All right. We'll move from a position that seems pretty clear to a position that seems kind of muddled to me from the outside looking in. What can you tell us about running backs, and what are your expectations this year?
Oh, man. That one's hard. And all this stuff is, of course, as coaches, I'll use a coach phrase. It's written in sand. Coaches like that one. I would say, I think Anthony Grant and Gabe Ervin are sort of vying near the top. I think Ramir is definitely near the top too, but Ramir is like Brunson. I think talked about this maybe on a recent pod. He's like his own category of guy. Yeah. Like he's his own position. We might talk about the Ramir position. That's like we talked about the JoJo position or something, because he's been working at the slot as well. I think he's going to catch a lot of passes. So Ramir very well could be RB1 when you're in a pinch, but I think he's more than that. He's more labels than that. I kind of see Ervin and Anthony Grant rising there, and I think Yant's not going to be forgotten. So I think that's the mixture of top guys. A.J. Allen was banged up last practice. I don't know how long that's been, but, young guy, it could be tough to pop right in. So I would label those guys without saying there's a definitive number one that I'm just going to say he's for sure the guy yet.
Okay. Well, let's phrase this slightly a different way. On August 12th, who does Brian Christopherson think has the most carries in the 2022 season?
I think it will be I'm going to say Anthony Grant.
He doesn't want to do it, folks.
I don't want to do it. Anthony, yeah, I was supposed to give like a boom. That's your answer. Take it to the bank. I don't have it. I'll say Anthony Grant, but I'm not real confident in that. I think Gabe Ervin has jumped right back into it. He's added 10 pounds of bulk. I think he's going to have a big say in things if he can stay healthy.
Okay. Nebraska does not really use a fullback. If they had one, do we have any idea who that would be? Like Pitt had a fullback every now and then under Whipple.
That's a good question, actually. You caught me off guard with that one, Schaefer.
I would assume it'd be some sort of like H-back role involving Chancellor Brewington. Like that's the best I can do for it.
I think that's proper. That's a good example, though. You gave the right example of what that would be. Like a guy who shifts over and then just blows somebody up.
Yeah. Okay.
That's Chancellor.
let's dive into the wide receiver room, which continues to feel problematic for me.
Well, I do think there's a little bit of a search for consistency. I think I can name the main six in the rotation, and then saying for sure who the first three out there again in Ireland is maybe a little more tricky. I think Trey Palmer's one of them. But then the other five sort of in the mix, Oliver Martin, Omar Manning, who Mickey's pushing. I think he's pushing Oliver too pretty hard as a guy he thinks can have some game and really help this team. But then after that, you're talking about the new guys. You're talking about Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. I think Marcus Washington is going to play. Alante Brown, I think, not a new guy, but I think has really fit in with what Mickey wants, takes to his coaching. And I think Alante, whether he plays a lot or not, could be like the leader in that room as the guy who this is how we're supposed to do things. So those are the six that first come to my mind right now.
All right. Is there anybody deeper than that you're kind of keeping an eye on? Any walk-ons, any freshmen, anybody? Because Mickey had said that he wanted 9 guys, and now it feels like he's kind of right at 6. I think he even had a quote saying that they have 6. But do you see anybody deep that could be emerging?
Well, I do think there's guys like Brody Belt is well respected on that team. I mean, he can do a lot of everything. And I think there's going to be some matchup or some games where Brody Belt pops up. I really do. I think Mickey respects him. He's just a workhorse. And so he'd be a name I'd mention. Ty Hahn is not a guy we talk about a lot, but I believe he's heavily involved with special teams from what we hear. And I think that's huge because everybody's going to be like, who's on their travel roster? Well, Shenander has said this many times. What gets you on the bus? If you're a 3, but if you're really good on special teams, you're suddenly a 2 when you're going on the road because you're valuable. So a guy like Ty Hahn, I could see being in the equation. Janaran Bonner is a guy I would say is just a wild card that I keep in mind. He had a hamstring issue a little bit over the summer, but he's back. DeColdest, I think, had a setback, so maybe not him right now. But Bonner is a guy, maybe if you're looking for someone to make a surprise guy could pop up mid-season or something, I would just throw his name out there.
Every year there's a position where it seems like Nebraska just is unfortunate, where they pile up injury after injury after injury. It feels like tight end has already started to be that position for Nebraska in 2022. You were talking about a written in sand. This feels like it's written on ink on paper, stuffed in a glass bottle, rode across the ocean, and arrived on sand. And that's Travis Vokolek at tight end. But whatever's behind him really feels like a reflection of who's healthy right now, because I believe Chris Hickman was out at the most recent practice. Thomas Fedoni has been out since the middle of the spring. AJ Rollins didn't practice early in fall camp. They're banged up. Brody Tagaloa is probably not going to practice for much of this season. What have you kind of seen from the tight end position, and who's sort of emerging as 2-3 for you?
Yeah, obviously 1A is Vokolek, and then I think Nate Borkercher, I think, is really loved by Sean Beckton. And honestly, if you're saying who's your best guess at number 2, that's mine. I just hear about him more than anybody when the coaches talk. He's from Aurora like Austin Allen. I just think he's a guy who does a little bit of everything that they want, and he's added weight too. I think Chancellor Brewington is right there as well. And then a guy who I think could sneak in, not sneak in, he's starting to flex his muscle, is AJ Rollins. So those are the guys who kind of come to mind right now. I'd say Borkercher though, but Rollins, if he has some good practice behind the scenes and is healthy, he can be there. And then Brewington wants to show he's more than just a guy who's on the goal line to block people.
So do you have concern at the tight end spot at all?
Mild concern. I think they might be better than some people realize. It's just sort of names that aren't as familiar. It would be awesome if Thomas Fedone right now were just taking off and we're healthy and we had an amazing spring. Think how excited everyone would be about that position. But I do think they like some of those guys. But if another one of those 3 that I mentioned goes down, you are getting kind of thin there. And Chris Hickman, it's just been kind of a struggle to stay healthy. I think he had his chance or has a chance within this camp to make his name. But as you mentioned, he was out recently, and it's sort of been on again, off again, where it's difficult to make a move when you're not available.
All right. We have reached the offensive line. BC, this is where you're going to have to give us your left to right prediction as it stands here on August 12th. And then we can dive into all of the minutia. But if you were making your best guess, Nebraska's starting offensive line against Northwestern looks like what?
I actually feel pretty good about it. I think left tackle Teddy Prohaska, left guard Turner Corcoran, center Trent Hickson, right guard Brock Bando, right tackle Bryce Benhart. This is the year, as we've said, of the 6-year senior. You need a lot from Hickson and Bando, guys who have kind of always been in the shadows. Now it's their time to be the guys and bridge into the future. Corcoran, I think, is the emotional leader of that group, and people might have noticed on Wednesday when the offensive guys spoke that they had sort of a letdown practice. And I don't know that it was coincidence that Corcoran was out. I think he spearheads a lot up front and has become that guy. And so he definitely he was out for that one. And so he needs to be full go. Teddy Prohaska is such an interesting story. You and all of us, I think, believe in what he's going to be. We just have to remind ourselves he's barely played any college football, actually. He started 2 games, played in 5, second-year college guy. So we always got to keep that in mind. I think Benhart's the key to a lot of things, though. If he's consistent and takes a step, it allows everybody to stay put and focus on their jobs without moving all the pieces around. And that's huge. If I were to guess, backing up behind them, I think Kevin Williams is actually working at left tackle. I could see Brant Banks being the backup left guard. He was at left guard in place of Corcoran the other day. Ethan Piper at center. I think Latovsky they love and is the future, and he's at right guard. Maybe next year after Bando, and then maybe right tackle would be Hunter Anthony. So that would be my best guess at a 2 deep right now.
Okay, it does feel like they're deep with names that either or guys that have played or have experience. Like this does feel like they have a deeper offensive line than in recent years. I mean, whether it works out where they actually play well remains to be seen. But they do have quite a few names to work off of here that have experience and have played.
Yeah, I mean, the guy I'm really excited to see at some point is Latovsky.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But if we don't see him as much this year, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That means Brock Bando stepped up to the plate as a veteran, and and then hopefully Latovsky's ready to roll as a third year college guy next year. So yeah, I think there's potential there, but you're kind of asking some guys there's names you're very familiar with because they've been in the program, but some of them haven't had that shining moment yet or put it all together. And so they need like 2 or 3 of those guys at the same time to have it happen.
What do you think of the grouping of Prohaska Corcoran as one side of your offensive line?
I mean, I like it. Those are 2 of the most highly rated or most talked about guys, you would say, as far as recruits coming in, obviously with Teddy being a local guy and Turner so highly rated. I think there's a lot of fire to them. And, I think they had something pretty good going for a couple of games with Teddy and Nuri last year. I mean, people got to remember Nuri suspended for the year. This would be a lot different if he were there. He'd be at left guard and you could do a lot of different things. So that's still costly and something we've kind of forgotten about, but it existed and it's changed the equation. So, but what they have, I think those guys have a good mentality that kind of shapes well with each other. So hopefully this is the year they not just, one of them grows, but they help the other next to them grow along the way.
All right. Let's go to special teams before we dive over to the defensive side of the ball. This should be pretty simple, I think. Nebraska's place kicker will be?
I think it'll be Timmy Bleekrode, unless he's just scuffling behind the scenes. I haven't heard that. He was 21 of 25 the last 2 years at Furman. It's a different, more eyeballs on you and all that stuff. So I'm not going to say it's the exact same, even though the goalposts are the same and do the whole Hoosiers thing where we measure it out. But I think I I'm really excited to see him kick. The only thing if I've had any hesitancy, it's just based on the fact the last few years we've seen guys have good years and bad years, good years, bad years. So I keep that in mind with the kicker. You're only as good as your last couple of weeks. So that's sort of the way I am with that position.
Punter? Sorry.
Yeah, Buschini's your punter, Brian Buschini. I think he's been about what they expect. I know when he first got here, I think you were over there talking to him, and he was still working on his consistency a bit. But there's a resume there that you like a lot, and you just kind of assume he's going to be pretty good. I'm sure there'll be a wart here or there, but that goes with the position.
Do we know who Nebraska's long snapper is?
The mix of three guys, and hopefully I'll say the names right. Brady Weiss, the transfer from Georgetown, would be in the mix. Cameron Piper and Mueller, I think.
Yeah.
Those three guys have sort of been close, and I think certain guys have been better actually at certain things. So I don't know if they would dare take two for some trips or what, but those are the three guys, and we'll see who trots out there first.
Okay. Actually, we're expecting Trey Palmer to be pretty heavily involved in the return game, right? He sounds like he wants to be involved in it.
Yeah, and Bill Bush did say like a week or so ago when asked, he's like, I asked, is Trey sort of the lead guy there? And he kind of confirmed that was the thought. I think there's other interesting guys like Tommy Hill. They like in the sort of a natural at it. Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, I think, has tried his hand back there and is sort of in that mix. I think they have kind of security guys too, as Bill Bush said, like a Oliver Martin or a Brody Belt might be that sort of guy when you're like, let's catch this football. Not that
the fair catch guy.
Yeah. Like we're not dropping this football right now. This is the game. That sort of guy, maybe when you want to catch it at the 10-yard line or whatever. And not the 2, hopefully. So those would be my best guesses. And I think Anthony Grant could be the kick returner based off a couple comments Bill Bush has made.
Okay. We're going to combine all of the defensive line as one unit. Give me left or right. Well, it doesn't even have to be left or right. Who are the 4 guys you expect to get the most snaps early on up front?
That's a tough one in some ways, in a lot of ways.
You can give me 2, I'm pretty sure, and then the other 2 spots.
Well, we know Ty Robinson.
Yep.
Garrett Nelson.
Yep.
And I sort of think their starting 4 could be Tanner, Nelson, Robinson, and Colton Feast. And that's not to dismiss O'Shawn Mathis at all. I just say, like, if you ask me if you had to guess, like, who's out there first snap, that's who I might say. O'Shawn Mathis is going to play just as much. And basically a nice rotation. I think they're going to do a lot of different things. And so I don't think we should get too caught up in just like, these are the 4. But Colton Feast, I know you were on this a couple of weeks ago. And, Devin Drew is here now. It took a while for him to get here. And you could probably only ask him to do so much. Stephon Wynn is a big body, but he's still got to pick up some things. And I think he's kind of in a battle with Nash Hutmacher. Hutmacher was even maybe a little ahead of him last week. So I would say Feast is going to play a lot. I think Hutmacher will play a lot. I think they'll get something out of Win, and I could see them package some stuff for Drew early on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The big question I have, do you foresee a way that you can get Caleb Tanner, Garrett Nelson, and O'Shawn Mathis on the field all at the same time?
Yeah, I think they will. I think it could be like special, like 3rd down and 12 type deals or whatever. But not only that, but I think Eric Shenander said, if I'm a good coach, I find ways to do that. You find ways to get all your best players. And if those are your best guys, it happens. The one thing I'll say, and people can take it as August fluff or whatever. I believe O'Shawn Mathis has a personality that was perfect for him to do what he's doing and merging in. Like he just has he has a very humble way about him, even though a lot was made about him when he picked his school. And I think that has gone as well as could possibly be asked. They haven't upset the apple cart there at all. And I think Caleb Tanner's been a really good teammate and just wants to win. I actually think Tanner's the guy people are sleeping on a lot. I think he was really pretty good at the end of last year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a lot of plays and is in that competition sort of for sacks TFL leader. That's sort of my against the grain guess, because he probably wouldn't be the first name everyone would pick in that race.
All right. BC, big shareholder of Caleb Tanner stock for the 2022 season. All right, jumping to the third level. How does this, or not third level, excuse me, second level. How exactly does this look? Like do you really think they're going to be in a 4-3 a lot, or does it feel like they're going to be in a nickel package most of the time? Because I don't really know who the third linebacker is. I know who two are, but what do you think it kind of looks like at that second level when they're in a base package?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's going to be a lot of mixing where it's like, what exactly are they? And I think Chenander's fine with that. I remember when he arrived his first year as coach, and everyone was saying, "What are your 3-4? Label it." And he was just like, I guess we played more 3-4 at the time, but he didn't really want to get caught up in all that. I think that nickel guy is sort of like he's your third linebacker, but he's going to have coverage skills basically and be a DB. Obviously, your two starting middle backers, as we're still calling them, would be Reimer and Henrich. And then I think Ateva Malga Clements has probably worked his way to the third guy. They've really liked him. Everybody says he's had a good spring. Fourth guy's interesting. Snodgrass could be it because he's the veteran. He could be it for a while. But Ernest Hausman, pride of Columbus, everybody just raves about and just looks like you're not supposed to look actually at that age.
You didn't look like that at 18 years old?
Well, I did. See, I've changed a lot since then.
Okay.
I did look like, no.
Wow, you had the freshman negative 40? That's how it worked for you?
Yeah. All right. No, that's it. Hausman is exciting. I can't wait to see what he does. I think he could burn a red shirt playing special teams, whatever. But that's a sidebar. Like if he pops in for some backup snaps, and Rude does want to rotate those guys more. So we'll see. At the nickel, you're talking about Isaac Gifford, Chris Kolarovic, and Javen Wright. And Javen Wright's been a fun story of fall camp because coming back he's had back-to-back years with injuries. The last one was more worrisome because it was a blood clot thing. So when you heard that, you're like, what's the timetable?
They were kind of freak things, right? Like they're not sort of the injuries that you kind of expect to deal with, the blood clots. And I can't remember what the first one was.
Yeah, it was an upper body injury, I believe, because it
was a shoulder, I think, something.
Yeah,
but it wasn't like a normal. It was like a rotator cuff or something, just like a different kind of football injury.
Yeah, that could be. I know the last one definitely was with the blood clot. And when you hear that, people around here are familiar with that injury because it's been with Husker football back to the Frazier era, but brought it back to that. But
there you go.
I think he's a freak. He's a freak athlete. He has that one play everyone saw where he went up and one-handed a pick, 40 yards down the field. He has that type of ability. Son of former black shirt Toby Wright,
who played with Tommy Frazier.
Yeah, 93. He was a senior. I'm not shocked Javen's there because I remember a couple years ago at a round table, he had just got here and Chenander was already brought him up. Like, this guy's fast. He picks stuff up. And so that has allowed him to, even though he's been away from the field, to process all the mental parts that go with that position. I still think Gifford could, if you're guessing who's going to play the most there, Ooh. I'd probably say Gifford, but that's not an easy one at this point either.
Yeah, I think you're going to get a lot of Gifford, Kolarovic, and Wright sort of situationally dependent until one of them really emerges as a guy that could be used in all situations. All right, we're back into the secondary, which I'm telling you, Brian, I continue to believe is maybe more talented than the one that was outgoing, and that one featured a second-round pick and two guys that were super seniors that were really very good. at their jobs at safety. And then you can even throw JoJo Doman in that mix too. They lost a lot in that secondary. And yet I feel very confident that this group is going to play well. What are you seeing? Who's out there for your first four, and what does the depth look like?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Not as tough as some spots. Corner, I think it's going to be Tommy Hill and Quinton Newsome. Quinton's the obvious one just because they wanted him to lead. They think this is the year he becomes sort of what Cam Taylor-Britt was the second half of last season. And then Tommy Hill, Travis Fisher makes no bones about it.
Yeah, there's no question.
He thinks the guy should be playing on Sunday soon, like in a few years, like he believes he can have a special career and be that guy. It's just about getting everything out of yourself. And so his ceiling is probably as high as anybody on this roster if you listen to Travis Fisher. After those guys at corner, I think Braxton Clark is definitely right there as a veteran guy. Javier Morton, I think, is kind of in that mix too deep. I think Timon Lynam's the guy that has he's had a good camp and really goes after it hard. I was taking one of my phone videos at practice the other day, and he came right into my kitchen. He does every drill like that when I watch him. So I think Fisher has always liked him. It's just sort of been a deal where he's always kind of been like fourth or fifth, so you don't hear about him. But I think they like him. At safety, I guess I would say Farmer and Buford to start. I think Omar Brown's making a charge and is going to be right there. And I would say I haven't heard as much about Deshaun Singleton this camp, actually. But I know he finished spring strong, and Fisher was really intrigued by him. So those would be kind of my main guys I'd mention there. And I could have forgot somebody, I'm sure.
Okay. As we finish up here, is there any position group where you've changed your opinion on? You thought one thing coming into fall camp, and now 2.5, 3 weeks into it, you feel either slightly better or slightly worse than maybe your initial impression?
I feel better about. I'm a little more unsure about wide receiver. This is actually taking it the other way than I thought I would be at this point. I'm not saying it. I don't think they're not going to be good, and I trust Mickey. I think he's really going to get something out of those guys. I think they're better coached than they've been, but I don't know if it's there yet. And that part of that too, think about they're trying to work with QBs that are new. There's a lot going on there. So that's a spot where I'm not quite sure. Running back, if you go back to like December to now, is completely different to me and better. Yeah. Like I just like where they're at. Yep. I think rush end is the best position on the team because Blaze Gunnerson and Jamari Butler are good backups beyond the three we always mention. So those would be my thoughts.
All right. That is Brian Christopherson rolling through every position. There's nothing we left out. I guess I didn't say the kickoff specialist, but it'll be the same guy as last year, whose name I can never remember.
Brendan Frankie.
There you go. There you go. So that's everybody. This is the only preview you need. You don't need the preview magazines. You don't have to read any special inserts over the next couple of weeks. We got it all right here at Husker 24/7. Ran through everything. We did it on August 12th. That's how smart we are. That's why you listen to this podcast, right?
I wouldn't say that, but yeah, that. I don't know if
Brian, stick your chest out. Beat on your chest a little bit. Let the people know you're an expert.
I don't know if we nailed all the ones exactly, but I think we got the names for the most part. Those are the key ones.
All right. Well, we will be back with more Husker 24/7 podcast next week. We're inching closer to the football season, which means the return of the Hypecast, the Husker 24/7 Hypecast, I should say. Our lawyers have let us know that we need to respond it that way, as Bruns has told you and I. So the Husker 24/7 Hypecast. And then we will be unveiling some other stuff that'll be popping up during this season as well. So be sure to keep your eye on Husker 24/7. Of course, we'll have all the great content at Husker247.com. Plenty of recruiting. High school season is underway. I've got a Malachi Coleman story that I've been working on in the background here for a little bit that I think people are really going to like. Got some pretty good nuggets there that I'm excited to share when that gets to come out. So plenty going on at Husker 24/7. Be sure to check out the website. And like I said, we'll be back with more podcasts next week.